Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Meet FinTrU Legal Careers webinar. My name is Una Rooney, and I am a Vice President working within the legal department here at FinTrU. Prior to joining FinTrU, I have spent a number of years working in both in-house and consultancy roles in the legal investment banking space. And now, since joining FinTrU last year, I am managing a regulatory project for a large European bank. The purpose of today's event is to give you an insight into what our role within the FinTrU legal team looks like. I'm joined today by a number of my colleagues here on our panel, who I will introduce in just a moment. But before doing so, I would like to highlight that we will be taking questions at the end of our panel event. So please do feel free to submit any anonymous questions you have using the chat function on the meeting here. So now to introduce the panel. So we're joined by Jackie Speedy, Paul Rainey and Andrea Lavery. So Jackie, do you want to give us a brief introduction to yourself and your career here at FinTrU?
Hi everyone, as Una said, I am Jackie Speedy. I'm currently a VP at FinTrU, been here for about 4.5 years, and I'm leading a documentation team here supporting the fixed income desk of a Tier 1 investment bank.
Thanks, Jackie. And Paul, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Rainey and I'm a Vice President here at FinTrU based in the Northwest office. I joined FinTrU in January 2019, so just over 2 years ago now. And I currently manage a team working on document remediation for a Tier 1 investment bank on a project related to Brexit.
Great, thanks for that, Paul. And Andrea, can you give us a bit of an introduction to yourself there?
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Lavery and I am a Senior Associate here at FinTrU. I've been with the company for about 8 months, and prior to this I worked in a legal services company in Belfast for 3 years. I'm currently working on a LIBOR remediation project for a Tier 1 investment bank.
Great, thanks for that, Andrea. So I'm now going to jump to our panel questions. I'm going to come to you first, Jackie, and the question I have for you is, why would you recommend a move to FinTrU?
Thanks, Una. Personally, I've come from an investment bank background before I joined FinTrU, so I noticed an awful lot of differences, and I would say, especially recently with the pandemic, work-life balance is such a major advantage at FinTrU. We've been able to be flexible with our employees. We can kind of suit any childcare arrangements that they have. We're allowing people to kind of work, slightly flexible hours. For some of our clients, we can even look at working New York hours versus London hours. And that's been so beneficial for a lot of the employees across FinTrU. And it is definitely a massive drawing point, because we're in Belfast, but we're able to offer a lot of flexibility. And I think that's absolutely amazing. I would also say that the ability to actually stay in Northern Ireland is a massive bonus with FinTrU. People have this assumption a lot of the time with vendors, contractors, consultants, that whenever you join them, you have to be placed on site in Hong Kong, New York, London, and that's not necessarily the case. FinTrU offers everyone a platform to work for these global clients, but from the Northwest, but from Belfast. And I think that's a massive selling point, because we're allowing people to stay at home and remain within Northern Ireland. They've gone to university here, we're keeping the skills in Northern Ireland, but we're allowing them to access the work that ordinarily wouldn't have been possible before. I know that certainly when I finished university, there was no real option like FinTrU to allow me to work for those global clients. And it's fantastic now that we have such a huge offering, and we've so many people at FinTrU who've been able to avail of that. So I think that's another massive advantage. I would also say there's a lot of diversity at FinTrU in terms of what you're capable of doing. So you could join FinTrU in one role, you could join in legal, and you could spend time with people across the company who are maybe working in risk functions or compliance, and you might actually start to realize that something that they're doing is something that you're actually really interested in. And if you have the skill set that allows for you to move over into that function, FinTrU will help support that and will allow you to test the water and see, you know, if that is actually a better option for you in terms of your career path. Because for them, you know, you're a massive focus. They want to make sure that you're in the right role and that your career can progress the way you want it to. And that's so unusual, because if you go anywhere else, you don't always get that optionality. If you come into a legal role, you kind of have to stay in a legal role, because that's all that you're viewed as, is someone who is a legal head, and you're very restricted, and sometimes you maybe have to leave the company to get past that. So definitely another massive selling point with FinTrU. We also offer a lot of development opportunities. So and this is something I just think is absolutely amazing, and I've definitely benefited from myself. If you want to progress in your career and you see gaps and you think, okay, there could be training out there that would fill those gaps, you can go out and have a look and see, you know, is there a course, is there, you know, like a one-day seminar that would actually help progress you in your career, and you can actually, you know, apply to get funding from FinTrU to go on and do that course. We've had people recently who have been, you know, fantastic at languages, and languages would be a massive bonus to their job, but they need to have a certain certificate in it to really kind of get over the bar. And FinTrU have helped support them, you know, in terms of their lessons and actually doing their final examination. Because the way they look at it is, if you can get that qualification and it helps you move up the curve in your career, you know, it's also helping the company. You know, we're able to offer more to our clients. So learning and development is just such a massive part of being at FinTrU. If that's what you want, they will always support it. So there's just so many things about FinTrU. I could probably talk all day, but cautious of time, and there's probably more questions on it, so I'll pass it back.
Thanks for that, Jackie. It's really good to hear about that flexibility at FinTrU and also the development opportunities as well. So really appreciate that. I'm going to come to you next, Paul. So you mentioned that you are in our Northwest office. So can you tell us a bit about your experience of how FinTrU has supported you in your move to the Northwest?
Yeah, thanks, Una. So probably helps if I just give you a bit more on my background. So I'm from the Northwest originally, as you can probably tell from the accent. I moved to Belfast initially for university, and then after university, a long time ago now, I qualified through the IPLS as a barrister before moving to work for a law firm based in Belfast as well. During that time, I relocated to the Northwest and was still working in Belfast, so making the daily commute around 4 hours out of each day, kind of traveling up and down, which was a hefty chunk. So I was always on the lookout for something closer to home, and was delighted when I heard the news about FinTrU opening an office in the Northwest in 2018. I thought it was great to see a relatively young company like FinTrU have the courage in some ways to open an office in the Northwest, an area that kind of has been historically under-resourced and under-invested in. When I applied to FinTrU, I spoke to the two guys who were doing the interview and asked them, I said, you know, is the Northwest office going to be a satellite office, or what kind of functions will it perform? But it was reassured that the Northwest office would be just an extension of the Belfast office, perform the same functions, have the same clients, you know, deal with the same day-to-day type of work, and that has proved to be the case. We do have multiple projects on the go for various clients, and most of which are staffed across both sites. In terms of legal in the Northwest, when I joined, I think there were only around 30 people in the Northwest office in total, as it was only, you know, had just been opened 1 or 2 months at that stage. So the legal function was only just in its formation stage. So I initially managed a small team working on KYC, and for someone with no background in investment banks, I found that to be really interesting, as well as really helpful in me developing my understanding of how investment banks work and operate, the different functions involved, and how they all interconnect. Later in the year then, I was given the opportunity to work on a Brexit project for a Tier 1 investment bank. You know, I didn't have any background in financial trading documentation, but was able to rely on the colleagues in Belfast to help get me up the curve, help develop my knowledge, as well as doing some personal research. And eventually then, when it came to grow that team, we did take on new recruits based in the Northwest to grow the team and ramp it up. We had a really busy period there over the last few months as we approached the end of the transition period to Brexit, but we managed to get things wrapped up in time. And overall, the Brexit project was a really good introduction to legal at FinTrU for me. In general, the legal team in the Northwest now has around 20 people, and we have colleagues working for different clients on various projects as well as in BAU roles. In terms of the culture side of things, the Northwest office is fully engaged in the committees and networks that run across the entire company, and we're fully involved in the decision making in those and how to drive them forward. In general, I think the Northwest office has around 150 people now in total, although I'm yet to meet a lot of those face to face, because I think the majority of those have probably been recruited over the last year since we switched to working from home. But overall, I would say, I've had a great experience since I moved to FinTrU based in the Northwest, and I would have no hesitation in encouraging anyone else to consider a similar move.
Great, thanks very much for that, Paul. It's great to hear about that growth in the Northwest. It sounds like things are getting very busy indeed. I'm going to come to you next, Andrea. So a bit like myself, you joined FinTrU during lockdown last year. So can you tell us a bit about your experience of joining FinTrU remotely?
Yeah, so I joined FinTrU in June 2020, so I have joined remotely. I was originally in the office for my interview and haven't put my foot back in it from it. But overall for me, it's been a really positive experience. When it first sort of came about, I was very nervous about how difficult it was going to be to settle into a new company, get to know people, especially people outside of my everyday project, and just sort of integrating myself into the company with not actually being there. But I really quickly realized that FinTrU had already thought about a lot of these challenges that were going to be faced by people that were starting remotely and had thought of ways to help them overcome them. So prior to me starting, I had a number of touch points with HR just about the current working from home situation, making sure I had all my IT equipment, anything else that I needed to start my first day. And once I came in, I realized there was a number of initiatives put in place to ensure that new joiners were well integrated into the company from day one. So we have things like True Networking, Onboarding Champions, True Meetup, and a host of regular virtual events for the whole company. And all these initiatives are designed to allow people the opportunity to meet people outside of their project, to get to know the FinTrU culture, to make sure that the right support systems are in place to support people through their first weeks and months at FinTrU. And even a year later, I still see the company continuing to find ways to improve the onboarding experience to make sure people are welcome and that they're slotting in straight away. So, like I say, overall for me, it's been a very positive experience. I don't think it's hindered my career progression in any way. I've recently been promoted to a senior associate. I have become a part of the social committee for 2021. So even though I haven't been in the office, I do feel like I've integrated myself into the company and that FinTru's really helped me do that.
Great, thank you very much for that, Andrea. So I'm now going to move to the Q&A portion of our webinar. So please do feel free to submit any questions you have anonymously through the chat function here. But I'm going to start with a pre-submitted question we received via Eventbrite whilst those are coming in. And the question I have here is, how can a 5-year PQE corporate and commercial solicitor transition to a role at FinTrU? Do I need to be a qualified solicitor to work at FinTrU, Paul? So I think I'll go to you on that question.
Yeah, thanks, Una. So as I mentioned earlier, I came into FinTrU with a number of years PQE, but no real background in investment banking or financial trading documentation. It was a steep learning curve. I did have to rely on colleagues. I did have to go and do some personal research and show some interest in the subject matter and a willingness to learn. But for someone with 5+ years PQE in a commercial corporate role, then there's obviously a skill set and aptitudes that a person like that will have developed in their role and professional experience, whether that be handling difficult clients, maybe managing complex negotiations, drafting contracts, or potentially even management experience, whether that's project management or people management. And those are all skills that would be really useful in the day-to-day role in legal at FinTrU. I think it's probably a combination of the two would be what leads to a successful transition. So it's your willingness to engage in a new subject matter, your willingness to pick up something new, learn from it, do your own personal research, as well as bringing those skills and aptitudes that you've taken from your own professional experience before. That is what I would say is a recipe for success and a successful transition. Then just as the second point of your question, do I have to be a qualified solicitor to work at FinTrU? No. We have lots of colleagues who aren't qualified, and it's no barrier to career progression at FinTrU, but perhaps someone else in the panel could speak to that more.
Yeah, certainly. I'll maybe pass to you, Andrea, for your view on that second question.
Yeah, sure. So I personally am not qualified. I do have a law degree. I have been in this sort of financial services industry for just over 4 years, and I don't feel it's hindered me at all. While it's not a disadvantage, it's not necessary. You pick up a lot more relevant skills as you go through, and there's a lot of, even FinTrU offers a lot of courses and stuff like that, the likes of IOC or project management or stuff that maybe are slightly more relatable to our day-to-day job.
That's great, Andrea. I have to agree with you. I know my background, I am like a lot of people wanted to pursue the training contract route when graduating, but quickly realised that there is a whole other area in alternative legal services, and found myself going straight into investment banking. And like yourself, Andrea, I never actually got qualified, but I've had a great career so far to date working in investment banking legal. So thank you very much for that. So I see the questions are flying in, everybody. So thank you so much for submitting all of your questions. We'll try and get through some. The next question I have here, Jackie, I'll pass this one to you. What is it like to go from working in an investment bank to working in a vendor?
Thanks, Ina. Wow, 4.5 years ago, I made what I can only think of was a leap of faith. I knew very little about the vendor market, if I'm honest, and I was working in an investment bank and felt that it wasn't maybe 100% the right environment for me. And I think what I quickly learned when I came to FinTrU was the big difference between working from an investment bank and a vendor in FinTrU is actually the collaborative nature, and the culture at FinTrU is just so different. So when you're in an investment bank, you've got to remember it's an intense place to be. The bank are trying to make money. There's live trades happening, every couple of seconds, minutes. And, as a legal function, you're there to support those desks trying to trade. You need to try and make sure that contracts are in place and they have everything they need so that they can, meet the trade that day. So it can be a really highly stressful situation, and you can, get caught up in working really long hours, and before you know it, you're there late at night, you're answering emails on your phone, you're doing stuff at the weekend just because you know that it's your responsibility to get that over the line. And then in the back of your mind, you're trying to think, well, how do I progress? How can I be, slightly more noticeable than the person beside me? What can I do to set me apart and to get me promoted? And sometimes that can be a struggle because every minute of every day is focused on, what's in front of you on the computer, and you can't see past it because you don't have time because it's so stressful. And don't get me wrong, I did a lot of things when I was in the investment bank, culturally as well, but I just kind of found that they were more for my benefit. They never really added that much value in terms of my career progression. What I found whilst being at FinTrU is they have, I suppose, what we call the push-pull structure. So if I want to move up to the next level, I need to look at who's behind me and help train them up and pull them up behind me. So we actually all work together to get promoted. So it takes that that competition out. everyone wants everyone else to succeed, and I think that is so refreshing because it promotes a much better working environment. So Paul could have a project, and I'm more than happy to kind of like help chip in, give some advice, give some guidance, and equally he'll do the same. He'll pass information to me to help me move a matter forward, you know, because we maybe support the same client, and that's fantastic, you know, because we both give each other time and we both help each other out, and then we also help anyone who's trying to get promoted to try and get up the curve. And that is just so nice to be able to come in every day and know that actually there's someone there who's supporting you and has got your back and is willing to help you in your career, and it's so much more relaxing. I also find the hours a lot more reasonable. You know, we're quite fortunate because we are a vendor. Every client will have different, you know, policies in place, but effectively what it means is that you can't have access to their system on your devices. So I can't go, you know, home at night and you know, read my emails on my phone because I don't have that access. So yes, I appreciate now we're all working remotely, but FinTrU very much encourage us to log off, you know, at 5:30 and end our day if that's, you know, if I'm working in London and that's the team I'm supporting. And I think that's fantastic. I know we've had some questions in about flexibility in working from home post the pandemic, and what I would say, you know, is that this was a massive test for us at FinTrU. It happened so quickly, as it did for everyone. You had to go to working from home, and it's been a massive success. Our clients really noticed very little difference in the transition period from us going from the office to home, and it's actually really opened our eyes to the ability to be a bit more flexible. So absolutely, that will continue. You know, we will look at allowing people to work from home a little bit more. We will allow people to do a bit more flexibility with their hours, because effectively, if it works now, there's no real reason why that model can't work, you know, once we're all back in the office, because we're doing exactly the same work today that we were doing last year. You know, the nature hasn't changed of how we operate. So absolutely, working from home is definitely part of the new norm.
Great, thanks for that, Jackie. I have to agree. I know that prior to joining FinTrU, I worked in both Dublin, travelling up and down the road 3 hours each way, and prior to that also flying back and forth from London every week. So it's so refreshing to be able to work in a role where you can have that global stage, but still obviously, you know, have that work and home life balance as well. So great to hear your experiences on that one. So yes, the questions have been flying in, but I'm mindful of time. So I think I'm going to finish up with one final question for our panel before giving some further information on our career opportunities after the panel. So the question I have for all of you is, why should someone apply for a career in legal with FinTrU? So I'll go to you first.
Personally, I think if you are someone that is really hardworking and wants to progress in your career, FinTrU is the place for you. They absolutely offer the platform to allow you to develop and to get to where you want to be when you're ready. And they don't have this system of, you know, so many people get promoted every year. It's done based on fairness and hard work, and that's absolutely why I would recommend applying.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jackie. And Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I think, again, I would echo Jackie's comments around career progression and a clear career pathway that FinTrU puts forward for its employees. Also, I would just point out again about the cultural aspect as well of FinTrU, that FinTrU are very keen to make sure that their employees' well-being is looked after and cared for. And you'll notice that there are different activities that take place throughout the year that we're involved in, also the charity work that we're involved in. So it's not just about the work for the client. There is a good ethos and another layer to FinTrU that I definitely appreciate, and I would kind of be keen for others to be aware of.
Great, thanks, Paul. And last but not least, Andrea.
Yeah, I think I would just echo what Jackie and Paul have said. Like, for me personally, the draw to FinTrU was what it had to offer. It had great personal and professional development opportunities along with a great culture. So it wasn't going in as just a number in a massive company. They had a real personal touch to it, which I really appreciated, and that would definitely be a big draw point for me.
That's great, Andrea. Thank you very much. I have to agree with you all. I think the culture at FinTrU is very hard to beat. It's a little bit it's catching, as they say. It's hard not to get on board with it. So thank you all so much for your views on that. So look, I think that's all we have time for. I'm mindful of the time on our panel section, but thank you so much everybody for joining today's event. And I'm really sorry if we haven't been able to get through all of your questions, but please do feel free to send any queries that you have to careers@fintru.com and we will make sure that we get a response to you. We do have some great opportunities for people with legal experience who are looking for a career at FinTrU, and more information can be found via our website at fintru.com/careers. I'm mindful we've also had a question come through on our legal academy as well. So I just wanted to touch on that. If you have a look at our website, you'll also see details there with regard to our academies, and you can also sign up for our newsletter for more information on general careers as well. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today.